Alright, so the stream should be working now. Alright, so how to start a painting with water mixable. Very simple. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tone it first, and the colors that I'm using are in the description box, but I'm actually using a 3-color palette, and I just stick this thing in the freezer. So this is a class that I teach on Patreon, so my students are able to watch this on Zoom. So I've got one of my students with me at the moment. So just whatever color I want to start with. This is going to be a still life. I'm starting with a grayish tone. So I'm just mixing all the colors on here. So this is a 3-color palette, and I pre-mixed the brown, the orange, and the green. But it is a 3-color palette. This consistency is kind of important. I am thinning it out with water, as you can tell, but it's not too thin. I don't want it to be so thin that it's gonna drip. This part's actually kind of important because the paint is gonna act as if it's pretend dry. So what pretend dry means is it's gonna act as if the paint is dry, which is that kind of gooey feeling that people don't like when they're transitioning from water mixable to, from traditional to water mixable. But that gooey feeling that you don't like at first is actually one of the most useful things about it. So if you're watching this in the future, feel free to fast forward this. Usually with a edited video, I fast forward this part, but it's important. I mean, this is going to be the layer that you're going to be painting on, so it's better to take your time with it. And I'm choosing this gray because it's going to be easier for me to work into it. This is just cotton canvas taped onto a drawing board, and later if I want to stretch it, for example, if I wanted it to be an 8x10, say like this is an 8x10, I can easily cut it, cut this canvas to size. So but anyway, feel free to ask any questions. Like I said, my student's with me here, Richard. So Richard, if you have any questions. Like I said, your audio is not connected to YouTube, so you don't have to worry about your voice being on the internet or something. And you said you have the chat box open too, right, Richard?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. So you'll be able to see what they ask, if anything. No one's asked anything just yet. So I guess I should probably explain what this is again for anyone that just signed on. This is my Patreon class, but the students that are in that tier, this is the still life tier. Students that are in that tier are paying $5 a month, and they are able to be on Zoom with me while I'm painting at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Mondays. That's for still life. Same thing on Wednesday, but that's portrait. But I decided to do this stream public instead of unlisted, just to give you an idea of how the class runs, and just to talk to all of you again, even though no one said anything. I still exist, by the way. I just haven't uploaded in a while. Alright, this is my last little section of the square. Like I said, you could just fast forward this if you're watching it in the future. So it's a grayish, almost kind of like purple square. This is gonna be my canvas, my working space. On the live stream, you have a picture of my setup, which is a salt shaker that has it has my dog's one of his first teeth that fell out. So I keep it in the salt shaker. And that's gonna be it. So Richard, are you okay?
Oh, yes, yep, I'm right here.
Okay, cool.
I have camera view.
No, the camera's not gonna show. The camera's not.
Oh.
Like I said, it's another camera that's on YouTube. So completely separate camera, completely separate audio. So somebody said that looks like plain paper. It looks like it, but it's just a sheet of canvas. Alright, so here's an important thing about water mixable, is the pretend dryness thing. So if you pay attention to how this runs out of paint, it's gripping, see that? It's gripping the paint as if it were dry, which is why I call it pretend dry. So this now can work just like your typical umber sketch. And yeah, it does look like plain paper, but trust me, this is primed cotton canvas. I usually prefer linen, but for sketches like this and even some more delicate paintings, I've been using cotton. Alright, so I'm drawing this just like any other still life. So the tone underneath is going to be useful for many things, but if you choose a particular color, you should choose it so that it helps with the colors that you mix. So for example, like the floor plane is going to be kind of like a grayish color, right? So adding white to this, it starts to mix into the color that I want. Kind of like Bob Ross's magic white or whatever, his tone that he would use. And I can just use it to create whatever I want. And obviously it's not going to be just this color, but it's going to be close enough to it. So thanks for the questions. With this oil, do you use soft hair brushes for the most of your portraits? Which brushes are you working with today? I'm using bristle brushes. These are the same brushes that I use with traditional. So I don't differentiate between brushes with water mixable versus traditional. They are pretty much the same for me. These are silver brush. I should have put that in the description box. That's one thing I managed to fail to do. These are silver brush Grand Prix. You can tell by the gold and green. Silver brush Grand Prix. I have size 4, size 2s, and then I have silver brush sables that I'll eventually get to with all like the refinement stuff. But more than anything, I want to show how I start. So Richard, you good?
I'm good.
Cool. Yeah, this is just the same
Oh,
stuff.
except for, did somebody ask you that question? Because I don't see it on the live chat.
Yeah, they asked what brushes I'm working with.
Yeah, it's not coming up.
It's not showing up on the chat link?
No, I don't see it.
Oh, that's strange. Maybe there's a delay or something. I don't know.
No.
It might be delayed. Yep, no problem. They're just saying thank you that I answered the question. And now I'm putting in the brown for the background. So here's the thing. The pretend dryness of Cobra or just any water mix. I don't know. Richard, you noticed this with Artisan, right?
Yes.
That it does that pretend dry thing. So it can be done with Artisan. right? So maybe it's not just a Cobra thing. I don't know. I'd have to experiment with the Artisan. I just remember the first time I used it, I couldn't use it to save my life. Um, but the same thing with Cobra. I couldn't figure out how to do a start that wasn't
Well,
just drawing. Huh?
Cobra is more buttery out of the two. It does spread a little easier, but they act pretty much the same. I do have Artisan because just availability. Artisan is everywhere. The Cobra I have to order.
Artisan is
So I have-
everywhere, and
Yeah, I have to.
you have to special order a Cobra.
Yeah, no store around here carries it.
Oh, that's a good question to ask everyone. That's anyone that's watching this. Is Cobra Talons available to you? I mean, for me it isn't. I have to order it too.
Windsor Newton's cornered them. They're everywhere in every craft store, paint store.
So now I'm putting in the angle for the platform. So that's cool. Yeah, I'd have to use the Artisan a little bit more to know how different they really are. But anyway, what I'm
But like,
huh?
but like I say, I tried an experiment on my own using the medium, and I kind of liked it. I know it adds another element of that you have to consider while painting, but it made the spread of the Artisan more easy.
It simplified the spread of the Artisan.
Yeah.
So it made it more like the butteriness that you
Yes.
remember with traditional.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And it dried faster.
And that's the Artisan quick dry medium.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm trying to get this background color, and I'm thinking of the background color kind of like a tone to help out with the still life, because it's glass. It's usually easier to yeah, with glass it's usually easier to get the stuff behind it first before you actually get into the glass. But with a portrait, I'd probably go into the portrait first before going in with the background, but it depends on the scenario. Okay, so we've got the backgrounds somewhat figured out. Now I'm gonna go start
I
to
have a question
paint.
for you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mhm.
Now this is a cotton
Yeah,
painting on
yeah. This is cotton canvas.
canvas. Do you have a preference for what to use? Let me tell you why I'm asking. I tried the linen, and I still have some linen canvases, and I found the paint, even with oils, it really soaks it up. It's hard.
It soaks
To,
the paint up too much.
Yeah.
It could just be something to get used to. I think linens, it depends on how they're prepared, but typically they should be less absorbent, I think, than cotton.
Oh, really?
Um,
Really? Less?
but they will feel differently, and even if it's less absorbent, it could still feel like it's more absorbent.
Maybe that's it.
But they feel different.
It was my first time using it, so.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to choose like one over the other. I mean, linen is uh, easier for like the refinement of a really realistic portrait because like it's it's less it's less bumpy typically unless you get like a rough linen like this one is like, if I go into the grain of it whoops, I got some paint on it. Anyway, it's typically smoother. With cotton, it's very hard to find like a smooth cotton canvas. And I mean, this one is kind of smoothish, and you can make it even more smooth by applying gesso to it and then sanding it and all that stuff. But it's less work, I guess, with the linen. So we've got some people saying hi. So is the chat box still not working, Richard?
I'm not seeing anything, no.
Strange. You might have to refresh the link for the chat box. We've got a couple more comments. So we got Tipu is here. Thanks for watching from Canada. We got someone ROIL. Have you noticed Cobra Titanium White takes an awful long time to be touch dry? I have clouds in the sky and the landscape. Let's see, in 2 weeks, not thick paint and no medium. Hey Diego, thanks for watching. Excellent question about the drying of Cobra. I was waiting for somebody to ask that. So here's the thing about Cobra's the way it dries. If you are in a climate that is more humid, here it's actually pretty humid. It's summertime, and I keep pointing out to this painting. This one I worked on last week. Was it Wednesday? Was it last week, Richard? I think it was Wednesday.
Yes.
Yeah. And let's do a test. I'm just rubbing my finger against it, and nothing's coming off. So this is touch dry, and yeah, it's touch dry, and I didn't really have that be touch dry on me that fast in the past, and it did take like much longer, and I can't really attest to it being because of the humidity, because we're in the summer. There's more humidity here. However, what could be impacting it, ROIL Royal, and what might help you with this is if you keep your paint in like in one container like this. Now it doesn't have to be this luxurious paint palette that I have here. It's a very expensive paint palette, by the way. But what you can do is keep your paints in here, freeze it, and just let the mixing space dry. So if you look at the back looks different than the front. And I don't know how many people that paint with water mixable will tell you this, but if you keep this, it's already in the process of drying somewhat, right? So I suspect that might accelerate the drying rate of your paints. I think. And next week we'll see if we return to this next week. But next week this should be somewhat dry-ish. But here's the catch: if it's not completely dry, like if you can put your finger on it and it's like this, right? It's not dry. This is a really freaky thing about Cobra. It's for lack of better words. My student that's here with me, Richard, knows this already. This is paint, and I want you to see how the paint is going to drag off the brush. See that? And it's kind of hard to tell, but it's and it's really, this is an extremely important thing about water mixables. So see how it drags off like that? That is acting as if it were dry. See this? I get the same, you see that on the bottom there? I get the same exact kind of like tire tracks, so to speak. That is the most useful thing that differentiates water mixable from traditional, and I think it's easier to use. I might upset some people here. Depends on how many people are gonna watch this, but if you put me in a situation these days where I can paint with traditional like I used to with the lead white and all that stuff, or use Cobra and I have to paint really fast, I'm gonna use Cobra because of that aspect of the pretend dry thing. It's really gonna help you royal BLU if you incorporate. You see that not as a bad thing, but as something that you can add to it. And it doesn't sink in for the life of me. I don't know why. I can't tell you why it doesn't sink in as much. Like I said, I've got two portraits here, and none of them are sinking in. So I don't have to oil it out. I don't have to apply any medium. These are both just full Cobra and water. Zero medium, like none, and nothing is sinking in. What does sinking in mean? It means that with traditional paint, it can dry and look a little bit gray, and then you have to oil it out. Yeah, that doesn't happen with water mixable. It's weird. Does that happen with the artisan or Richard?
It's the same way.
The same thing?
The color doesn't change.
It doesn't sink. That's wild. So it doesn't happen with the Windsor version. So let's see if I missed anything. So hey Diego, Jonas. Let's see. Is it safe to use normal oil paint on top of the? Yeah. You can use traditional and water mixable interchangeably as long as the traditional is applied over top of the water, and then you cannot use water anymore. So if you mix traditional and water mixable, and then you happen to use any medium like Gamsol or whatever, you must only use Gamsol. Cannot go back to water. But yes, yes to your question. So ROIL, you live in a desert climate and you use a glass palette. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that, but you can definitely, like I said, like utilize the fact that it's like pretend dry. It's really useful. We got a lot of questions. This is good. Let's see. So Richard is still not working, the chat box?
No.
That's odd. Well, you can always just click on the live stream too to see the question. So someone's asking, let's see, someone uses gouache and don't want to use oils for the toxicity. Sorry, my head is in the way. And so that's why these are great alternative. Unfortunately, they aren't available. Yeah, so if they're not available, you can use the artisan. My student here, Richard, uses them, and they have the same kind of effects. You just have to get used to that pretend dryness that I was talking about. That's really useful. Oh, ROIL is in blue, is in royal blue. Oh, cool. Hey, Elizabeth. Oh, thank you. Oh, I talked you into buying Cobras. Awesome. Oh, awesome. Thanks for buying the Cobra. See, Cobra Talons, where are you? I need to be sponsored. But yeah, there's so much about Cobra that's easier than traditional. And me being someone that's been painting for 15 years? I don't even know, 14, 15 years. I can say that Cobra is easier for me to work with. It's actually easier because of that pretend dryness thing here. And again, I'm doing it again. I'm using the pretend dry factor to be able to apply wet paint onto wet paint onto wet paint, and it feels as if I'm applying wet paint onto dry paint. It has more control. It's less of that kind of soupiness to it that traditional has, especially when you're doing wet into wet. And again, everyone, this is my class, my Patreon class. So if you want to be with me in class on Zoom, like Richard is with me here, and don't worry, your face won't show up. Your like you won't be heard on YouTube. I mean, it could be very faint, but not really, because my students are talking to me through a headset. So, but yeah, in class I can help you out with your paintings. I can give you advice on what projects to do. My online classes, of course, have projects that you can. Oh, thanks for the hearts, Elizabeth. Here's a nice thing about still life. I don't have to get the likeness. So this is a longer salt shaker, but it doesn't matter. So one thing about Zoom is I don't have the expensive plan, so I have to refresh the Zoom once in a while. So you'll hear me and Richard talking about refreshing the Zoom link. So Richard, we got 6 minutes till we gotta refresh. So should probably just do it now because I'm gonna forget. Are you okay, or do you have to go, Richard?
Yeah, no, I've got nothing to do.
Okay, cool. All right, so we'll refresh it now. I'll see you in a second. Yeah, so everyone watching on YouTube, my students have access to the link for Zoom, and as you can see, like over here, Zoom is going to end. Well, actually, you can't see it, but I just have to refresh it, which is not a problem at all. But yeah, feel free to ask me any painting questions here. Like, I don't know if I'll do these streams publicly that much, but I wanted to do it this time just to give you kind of an example of what class looks like. It's informal, but it's more custom to the student. I don't know why Richard did. I'm gonna refresh mine one more time, but yeah, I'll be right back, Richard. Yeah, so sometimes I've got issues with Zoom, like all of you do, I'm sure, but it's easily manageable. It's the same link every week for my students, so there's no confusion. Yeah, so sometimes there's an issue with the refresh button with my Zoom, but anyway, this is how class is. It's informal, but like I said, it's customized, so I'm able to answer my students' specific questions. And then I do have like an organized playlist of projects, like probably hundreds of hours worth of training your skill level, and you can do it with traditional or water mixable. I have shown that it is possible to start a painting with water mixable like you do with traditional. And I'm continuing to test it, of course. As you know, in any kind of scientific experiment, it's not enough to just get one thing that shows a result and therefore say that it is going to be always reliable. It has to be done many different times, which is what I'm doing. Let's see, so if someone, let's see, Scottish, you use artisan water mixable oils. Can you use cold wax medium with these paints? I'm not sure. Hey, Stephanie. I'm not sure. I know that Richard's using, my student here is using the fast drying medium that Winsor Newton makes. So it's possible that you can use medium with it, but I just don't. Oh, Stephanie, thank you. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you. And yeah, I've been kind of I've been kind of absent from YouTube because I've been experimenting with, I mean, many reasons, but more, one of the proper reasons, I guess, is that I've been experimenting with these paints, and I'm trying to show you how you can layer wet onto wet, and it acts as if it's wet into dry. And I've actually got 2 videos now that I haven't finished editing, but at some point in the future they'll come out, where I do more like refined finishes. But thanks for the super chat, Stephanie. Hey Libertas, thanks for joining. So Richard, everything good on your end there?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Still can't see the messages, but
Well, you can always just click onto
yeah, it doesn't matter.
You can click onto the YouTube video to see the messages.
Oh yeah.
It should be the first one on my channel if you click onto live. So I'm painting in all these darks for the handle. It's actually more complicated than I thought. This simple little glass object.
When you're painting transparent objects like that, the color that, say that, okay, the wall is that brown.
Mm-hmm.
The brown that appears as I'm looking through the glass, should it be lighter or darker?
So as you're looking through the glass, it depends on the opacity of the glass. Like if it's really like dusty, then it's gonna end up looking probably lighter because it's gonna pick up more of the light coming in from the environment. But if it's really clean, like this one is pretty clean, you can see right through it. But also some glass is slightly more opaque. So the answer is that kind of varies with different like different still life objects.
No hard and fast rule.
Yeah, exactly. No hard or fast rule. So Tipo wrote, that's why you like still life more. No need to worry about likeness. Yeah, definitely don't have to worry about likeness. Still life also helps with paint handling, and it's pretty much all paint handling, kind of like landscape, in the sense that because likeness is not really something that comes into question. Paint handling, like for example on the palette, like I'm keeping this back corner here as my dark space, and this is going to be my light space. So paint handling is not just applying paint to the brush and then the brush onto the canvas or the panel. It's also how you organize your paints on your palette, and how you mix. I typically mix in strings, so I go from light to dark typically. That's why I'm able to use this really expensive palette. I mean, right, Richard? This is the most expensive palette you could ever find. It costs thousands of dollars. Somewhere out there, somebody's gonna think that I'm actually telling the truth. But I think most people can tell what this is. It's ultra lightweight, very compact, travels well. And if you ever need to, what's up, Richard?
Which brings up the question for me. When you find such a expensive palette like that, and you've used it for a while, you're letting the paint build up. At some point, it's going to become unusable. Or can you wash once the water mixable paint is dried, can you wash it away?
Good question. So Richard asked, what this, on a more serious note, I mean, to everyone that thinks that I actually bought, this was a lid for my Thai food, drunken noodles, medium spicy, that I always order. This is just a lid. But Richard asked, at some point when you let the paint dry so much, isn't it going to become unusable? And the answer is, this is microwave safe. No, I'm just kidding. The answer is, I honestly think that it just gets better with the more paint that dries on it, because at some point it's going to be more dry paint than plastic. And I'm using a plastic lid because I mix in strings and it fits in my freezer really well, and I don't have to worry about it. But Richard, I think it just gets better over time. I don't, and if it gets to a point like you're right. If it starts to get too heavy, and I can just go in and chop some paint off with the palette knife, and it won't harm anything. So I could potentially use this for the rest of my life, but I probably won't, because I tend to experiment with palettes a lot anyway. So from blue, do you ever premix your colors? Your color values for still life? Absolutely. And you can think of this as a form of premixing, of how organized the palette is. And actually, so everyone this is gonna come as a shock. I mean, this is still, there's a YouTube video there's two of them that I haven't uploaded yet. And one of them, the one that I'm currently working on, this Rembrandt, everyone is wondering what on earth colors I'm using to create this. Let me tell you something, and this is going to be the thing that's going to shock you more than the weather. And it is, this is all I'm using. And I pre-mix my own green, my own orange, and brown. This is all I'm using. 3 colors, and I know I sound like some kind of like car salesman or something. Believe me, I'm not trying to sell anything to you. If I could sell something to you that would really help me out, I would do it, but I'm not sponsored by Cobra or anything like that. So 3 colors gets me this, which is, to me, it's more Rembrandt looking than any of the other ones that I've done. And yeah, this is 3 colors. I made my own orange, I made my own brown, I made my own green. And Richard was with me earlier when I made my brown. I just have a separate ultra expensive palette that I use to premix. You can see my green and my brown. Wild. It's actually quite wild. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of premixing that goes into it. About the schedule with my Patreon classes, it's usually from 10 to 11 Eastern Daylight Time. But today we're kind of like experimenting with this setup a little bit, so it'll go on longer. And I may return to this class, still life, next week. Or I'll start another one. I don't know, but yeah, that's how the class is gonna be. And again, for the $5 a month, you can attend the class on Zoom, and we could get to know each other even more. Right, Richard? You like the class, right?
Yeah.
We've got some good Yelp reviews. I'm just kidding. At least I don't think I'm on Yelp. I don't know. Hey Carla, glad you like the Rembrandt. Okay, so gonna go in with more of the blues. So another thing I have with my classes is the virtual classroom, which is on Tuesdays, which is a video that I upload that I use to give students advice on their current projects, class projects, or personal projects. That's every Tuesday. It's a pre-recorded video. Again, you'll get access to that with the $5 a month. Portrait is $10 a month on Wednesday. I gotta raise the value for the platform a little more. I think it's a little more green. Yeah, and I can vary my green. Last time I had a more kind of like brownish green. This time it's more towards the yellow. And in the beginning, with the last YouTube video that you saw me upload, I drew it out first and then inked it in, and that's a guaranteed way to get your drawing correct, but it takes so long. Andrea, it takes so long. So to me, it's a huge advantage to be able to do an umber sketch like I did here. Even though it was really fast, it was still an umber sketch. But usually when I start out students, you do the traditional drawing and underpainting, and you can underpaint with Cobra. You actually can. Believe it or not, you can underpaint with Cobra. Which means you should be able to do that with Artisan. And see how close.
I have the Cobra base, Ufari. I did get them. But like I said, I've also got the Artisan simply because of availability, and I've been comparing them.
Oh, you do have the Cobra.
Oh yeah, I do.
So, but you're using the Artisan more because it's just more available?
Well, yes, I was able to get them quicker.
Oh.
So I'm very cheap. Since I have it, I need to use it.
Okay, that's fine. I mean that's I can't express how useful it is to be able to, like I said before, use only 3 colors and white. And the palette itself, like this, the palette itself costs less than $80. Probably $80 with shipping, but that's wild. I mean, lead white, a big tube of lead white's gonna cost $100 nowadays. I mean, depends on what brand, but they were pretty expensive. Cadmiums are really expensive, and I don't need cadmiums anymore. I don't have any cadmiums, I don't have any lead, I don't have any mediums, and the paint dries consistent. So because it dries consistent, I don't need to oil out. If I want to glaze, I can glaze. Just thin the paint out with the water, as long as it's just the water and the medium. You're not adding any extra variables, so your paint remains consistent. Your paint film remains consistent. So you shouldn't violate fat over lean. And even if you violate fat over lean, it's gonna crack in 200 years? Do we really care if it cracks? And I don't really care that much. If it starts to crack in 200 years, they'll be able to probably do some science stuff, and for lack of better words, and just use an AI to fix it or something. Who knows? So don't worry about that aspect of it. This saves you money. It's easier to do, and There's nothing better than that, I think. And if you accidentally get paint, like this is just for this is just being silly, but if you accidentally get paint on yourself, like, oh no, what am I gonna do? Get a little bit of water, it cleans off so easily. Like a little bit of water and a rag, and like it's like it didn't happen. So you can't argue with that, right, Richard?
Oh, I found it, yeah.
You
that's
can't.
Huge,
Yeah,
huge bit.
you can't argue
The
with that.
cleanup has been really great.
Yeah, it cleans up so easily, and I've forgotten to clean my brushes several times, like left them for days, and I can still clean them. It's just so much more convenient. There's a learning curve to it, yes, but so convenient. And there's some people out there just like I was that will say, with water mixable oil paint, you only use water to clean the brush. Don't use water to paint with it. And yes, for the most part, that is a way to paint with water mixable. But if you can thin out the paint like I did and paint into it, what happens is you end up using less and less water. And at this point, I'm not really using any. I'm just using it to clean off the brush from time to time when I'm switching from like an orange to like a blue or some kind of complementary or whatever. But what I was trying to get at is, some people will say only use water to clean because it changes the way that the paint handles, and that change is something that really, over here we say irks. I don't know what that's our slang over here. It irks some traditional like painters. It bothers them that it changes the way it handles, and they just can't. Some people can't handle change, and you just kind of adapt to it, and then you realize that it's something that's actually beneficial over time. So from Tipu, so do water mixable brushes clean like acrylic or like oil? They clean more like acrylic, I think, in the sense that you just use soap and water. With traditional oil paint, you have to clean it with first you clean it with solvent, and then you go into it with soap and water. So there's more of a process with traditional than there is with water mixable. So from Blue, do you know if Cobra has info on the effects that water has on the pigment property? Yeah, they do. They had a video that they posted years ago when I first started using it, where they did like tests on it, like in a chamber of some sort, where they showed how light fast the paints are, and then they showed how it interacts with when you add water to it. So basically, on a molecular level, water mixable oil paint is the same as traditional, but there's a specific like molecule in the linseed oil that allows it to thin with water, and that's all it is. It's just the pigment thinning with water, and that's all it is. It just thins, but it doesn't actually disrupt like how it dries or anything like that. So from Carla, are water mixable oils considered safer than traditional oil? Such as you only have your bedroom to paint in, will they be safe? Let's see. So Carla, you're inspired by painting a common object, creating something more. Oh, thanks. I would say they are safer than traditional. However, it really depends on like how you define safe. Like if you accidentally get, okay, here's an example, right? My dog bumped into one of my big paintings and was full of black paint. And he's a puppy. And I was able to put him in the bathtub and clean him. He's a Shiba Inu, so the bathtub is not his favorite place in the world, but it came right off. So that was one instance where it was a lot safer than traditional, in the sense that like I didn't have to go through great lengths to get traditional oil paint off of my Shiba Inu. It's also safer in the sense that I am avoiding any kind of solvent in the air. It's just water. It's also safer in the sense that I don't have to freak out when I'm cleaning my brushes in the sink, because I use the same sink to clean my brushes that I do to clean dishes, for example. Well, that's not true. I have a dishwasher. Or I'm not gonna lie. We've got a dishwasher, but it's all around safer. Yeah. No, thanks, Carla. AGT. Good afternoon. So, Richard, how are you liking this little experiment?
Good. I like the way you're showing how you can layer over the paint that you already put on first.
Yeah, I think
It's going on very easy.
yeah, it's so easy. It does go on really easy. And like for example, I have to widen that. This needs to get wider, so that's what I'm about to do. And like I titled this "How to Start a Painting with Water Mixable," and like I would start a painting like this, even if I was gonna work on it for several months. I would rather start this way, and I'm not saying it's the right way for everyone to start, but it's a way to start that's really simple. Just work with shapes of color, and with the shapes, you have to really do nothing different compared to traditional. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just easier to use because of the pretend dry thing that I was talking about. It's so much easier. And when it dries very consistent, so it's not going to dry on me and sink in, and then I have to oil it out and apply medium to change anything. It's just very consistent, very reliable. Hey Luz, oh thank you. I mean, also as like a content creator, I can't paint really slow. It's I have to edit it, just like I fast forwarded the video, the last one that I did, because it was a slow process, and I was just kind of starting to get used to how that pretend dry affects the paint. And now I can use the pretend dry when I'm starting a painting wet on wet. I mean, I would walk into a figure painting session and do the same thing. Walk into a portrait painting session and do the same thing. And you save money with the paints also, so pretty useful. And then obviously when the painting is like finished, you can varnish it with any varnish you want. You can use the traditional varnish, you could use the water mixable varnish. I'll probably buy the Cobra varnish, to be honest, and use that instead. Yeah, blue. Yeah, you're right. The oil paint on its own isn't toxic. It's the solvent, the mediums, and I mean, really, I think anything could be somewhat toxic. I've said this already before. Like, as long as we don't go Van Gogh on it and start to eat it. Sorry to all the Van Gogh fans, but as long as we don't start to eat it, it's gonna be perfectly fine. But it's peace of mind, I think, more than anything. That water mixable gives you more peace of mind, and especially if you're like me, I'm pretty lazy when it comes to cleaning brushes. Like I don't like to clean brushes, and if I can do something that will allow me to paint more and clean less, I'm gonna do that. I mean, I'm not even cleaning my palette. So whatever can make me have to do less, like less effort and get the same result, that's what I'm gonna do. And the process itself, like it really does get to a point where you don't have to think about it. And that's the ultimate with everything. Like I'm a beginner pool player. I joined a pool academy here in Northern Virginia called Street Light. And I'm such a beginner, and I have to think about everything, every aspect of it. Whereas with painting, I've been doing it for so many years, like something like that, like knowing that I have to lower that, I don't have to think about it, I can just see it. And it's all through time and repetition and all that stuff. And being used to your mediums as well. Medium being the paint that you use. And I can use the paint itself to draw, just like with traditional. Really not that different. I'm trying to get this background color to be closer. And I can paint directly into, I'm just adding straight orange to mix into it. Just like traditional. I'm surprised no one's asked me what the three colors are. This is permanent yellow deep. It is semi-transparent. This is pyrrole red, semi-transparent. Ultramarine blue for the blue is full transparent. White, just titanium white, and it's opaque. So because my red and yellow are semi-transparent, it allows me to get darker values like that. It allows me to get darker values. If it were full opaque like cadmiums, I would really struggle getting, because the cadmium red would overpower the ultramarine blue. I think this is a decent start. I think I've shown that it is possible to start a painting with Cobra, or not just with Cobra, with water mixable. And we'll see if we do this next time. I think we can. If not, we'll just start another still life. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's good for a start. So Richard, we can stay on a little bit longer. But I'm probably gonna end the YouTube now, because I think I got the start down the way I wanted to. So I'll stay on for like another couple minutes on YouTube. See if anyone has any last minute questions. But Richard, we can stay on a little bit longer.
Right. You mentioned varnishing. How long do you have to wait before you would varnish a water mixable? I mean, they say in oils up to a year. Wait, sounds crazy.
That's a good question. So how long to wait to varnish a water mixable? I would wait as long as humanly possible. I mean, if you just sold it, I wouldn't varnish it at all.
Yeah.
Because they don't sink in like this. It doesn't sink in.
No need.
Yeah, so you really don't even need to varnish it. But if you want to varnish it, Yeah, you're right. I would probably wait a year, 6 months to a year, just to be really sure. I do the same thing with traditional. It's the same thing. I wait about a year if I can. Sometimes I've waited longer. Um, that's a good question. Let's see. Thank you, Carla. Thanks, Gabby. So from blue, when you're lining up the cue on the ball for pool, think about the light direction. Same principle. Oh, cool. Yeah, the highlight on the cue ball. So hey Ingrid, the drying time of Cobra. It honestly for me, it's about the same with traditional now, and I think some of it has to do with the fact that I'm leaving this in the freezer. Um, but I think it does take a little bit longer than traditional to be fully dry. But I'd say like for example, like the Rembrandt that I was talking about, like this was Wednesday, so it's been like less than a week and it's already touch dry. So it's it's about the same really as traditional. Uh, thanks, Royal Blue. From Tipo, instead of using a semi-transparent red, can't you use an opaque red but less paint? You can, but then it'll be harder to get like that full range. The range would be a little bit harder, I think, with opaque, but I'm sure you can. Carla, no, I don't cover the paint tray when I put it in the freezer. I just throw it in the freezer. Hey, Tipo, yeah, I did teach the dog more tricks. He learned how to, you know how to play fetch, right? He can now pick up a toy and put it in a specific basket. Um, and he's learning how to do that and a couple other ones. But yeah, I'll make an updated video on his tricks soon. Thanks, Beanpot. It's good to see you. All right, everyone. I'm gonna sign out, but Richard, we're gonna stay on a little bit longer. So, like I said, everyone, this is how I run my classes. You can be with me on Zoom at the same time that I'm painting. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday is $5 a month. It's the same Zoom link every week. Wednesday is it's $10 a month. That's for portrait, same Zoom link, but it also gets you access to still life. And then figure is on Friday, and all the other benefits again are on my Patreon. So once again, thanks everyone, and I will see you on the next one. All right, Richard, that was